Hey there, 12s. Welcome to a special edition of Winged Warrior Gaming, Hawk Talk Edition. Man, the Seahawks have been doing all sorts of crazy things the last couple weeks. Your man, Dark Warrior, here is getting ready to get you caught up. Here we go. What a crazy year it was in 2024 for the Seattle Seahawks. First year head coach had a really great start to the year, 3-0, and fans were suddenly wondering, is this it? Is this going to be the year? And then the team had its ups and downs. By the end of the season, the team finished 10-7. But there were a lot of bright spots to look at. From a fan's perspective, that defense, went from one of the lower defenses to one of the top defenses in the league, and it can only get better. Mike Macdonald has always been a defensive-minded coach, so you know for a fact that in year two, that defense is going to continue to improve. So where do the Seahawks improve then? Of course, that's going to be on the offensive side of the ball. And on January 6th, the Seahawks did just that. John Boyle announced that the Seattle Seahawks were departing from Ryan Grubb to Klint Kubiak, who intends to bring a physical, balanced, outside run scheme to the Seahawks offense that will actually adapt to the strengths of individual players. Now, this is a huge, crucial thing for the Seattle Seahawks offense because, as we all know, their offensive line needs some help. But in reality, with Klint at the helm, do the Seahawks really need top tier offensive linemen, or can they make do with some of the draft potential that we have in this year's NFL draft? We'll cover that in the next segment. Fast forward to March, and suddenly the Seattle Seahawks are looking like an entirely different team. Some of the players that have gone are now Geno Smith, quarterback, wide receiver DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, safety Rayshon Jenkins, and defensive tackle Roy Robertson Harris, and Draymond Jones, to name a few. However, whenever there are subtractions, there will always be additions. If you know Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald, then you know that he's a defensive-minded head coach. And one of the things that I absolutely love that he did this offseason with John Schneider was bring everyone back from last year's defense. That defense was playing absolutely lights out the final 6 games of the season. And to be able to have them coming back, plus some additional new faces, is something that is truly excited to look forward to. The first defensive player that John Schneider signed to a contract extension was defensive tackle Jarran Reed. Now, this guy has been an absolute anchor on that defensive line and has been a pivotal role in stopping the run as well as bringing pressure to opposing quarterbacks. Another player that the Seahawks gave a contract extension to was middle linebacker Ernest Jones, who to me was priority number 1 for the offseason. The moment the Seahawks put this guy on the field, he completely transformed that defense and made opposing teams have a much harder time running the ball and turned the Seahawks defense into one of the top performing defenses in the last games of the season. So kudos to John for being able to get this one done just days before free agency began. Personally, I think the best kind of jersey that a 12 can buy is, well, the number 12, and then get a custom name added to it. You can do your last name or whatever it is you want. However, for those fans that want to support an actual player, then look no further than Ernest Jones. This guy, in my opinion, is going to be the face of the franchise as well as the face of the defense moving forward. On March 10th, 12s all over the world got a peek into what John Schneider's vision was for the Seattle Seahawks offense moving forward. By making headline news, the Seahawks agreed to terms with quarterback Sam Darnold to replace Geno Smith as the starter for the 2025 season. I absolutely love this move by John Schneider for multiple different reasons. Not only did the Seahawks get younger at quarterback because Geno Smith was 34. He's still a good quarterback, but he is at the peak of his prime. He may only have a few seasons left within him. However, Sam Darnold, only at age 27, has many seasons ahead of him and has still a lot of potential to develop and improve from some of his games from last season. If the Seahawks are able to execute things properly, they could actually draft a quarterback in this year's draft and develop that quarterback behind Darnold for a few seasons, and that would build Seattle's future. The following day, many 12s, including myself, were hoping that the Seattle Seahawks would make a big splash in free agency for the offensive line, namely at center or guard. And the Seahawks did just that. However, did they get a backup or did they get a starter? Josh Jones from Baltimore was signed to the team. However, he has had very limited role in the Baltimore Ravens starting offensive line. So is he being signed as depth or is he being developed? That is really the true question. John Schneider does not shy away from project players. Could Josh Jones be a potential starter? Perhaps. Me personally, I feel like he's more of a depth signing than anything else. Needing to find a replacement for now departed DK Metcalf, John Schneider went no further than Klint Kubiak's old Saints team and signed wide receiver Marquez Valdés-Scantling. Now, in my opinion, I feel like this wide receiver is going to be a deep threat due to his speed. Does he have DK Metcalf's size? No. However, he is familiar with Klint Kubiak's system, and I do feel like Klint Kubiak will find a way to be able to use a receiver in a way that would be beneficial. Now, going back to John Schneider's comments about solidifying both sides of the line, the Seattle Seahawks then made the big splash of signing defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence, ex-Cowboy. I was so caught off guard about the signing at first that it didn't dawn on me. But then I started thinking, well, now you got Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jarran Reed, Ernest Jones, Tyrese Knight, Uchenna Nwosu, and now DeMarcus Lawrence. Man, that's going to be a defense that's going to be really difficult to move the ball on. And that's super exciting given that it's Mike Macdonald and his defense. Suddenly, one day, the LA Rams announced that they were going to release wide receiver Cooper Kupp. And before you knew it, 12s were refreshing their social medias, or that could have just been me, really, but checking every single day to see when the Seattle Seahawks would sign the star wide receiver. It had been rumored that the Seahawks were one of two teams to be within the final teams that he would decide for. And at the end of the day, he decided to come back home. So the guy that's from Yakima is coming back to the Pacific Northwest and is signing a deal with the Seattle Seahawks. So now when you look at the receiver room, you have JSN, Cooper Kupp, and you also have Valdez. That's a pretty good wide receiver room if you ask me. Since signing wide receiver Cooper Kupp, the Hawks have brought in some additional free agents and signed them to future contracts. They appear to be more depth related than anything, but they're still keeping their eyes out there, which they should. Some key dates to keep in mind: April 21st. This is when teams begin their offseason workouts and veterans as well as free agent signees can officially start working with their coaches and the teams for practice. This is key because at that point, Seahawks coaches can evaluate what their needs are to address them in the NFL draft, which is the next date to keep an eye on, April 24th through the 26th. So there you have it, guys. That's some of the latest news of what's going on with our Hawks. Now, I do have my thoughts on what the Hawks could do in the NFL draft. I'll save that for my next video, so stay tuned. This is Dark Warrior reporting on Hawk Talk edition of Winged Warrior Gaming. I'm out. Thank you for your support. Please like, share, and subscribe if you'd like future Hawk Talk content.